There are two big ideas that I would say are just central to our understanding of communication as a discipline and as a discourse. And those two big ideas are that our words have power and our actions communicate. You can almost look at these as sort of like the center, right? Everything else is bubbling up out of these two big ideas. So I want us to look at, what do these mean? What does it mean that our words have power and that our actions communicate? The idea that your words have power comes from a couple of different principles related to language and our words. The first is this idea of semiotics, that our words symbolize our thoughts and that our thoughts are connected to real things. And that those real things are symbolized by our words, which are driven by our thoughts. It's this triangle, right? This idea comes from the principle that language is abstract, that there's nothing chair about a chair. The collection of sounds are just what we've associated with the real thing, but nonetheless are a shared understanding. When I say chair, none of you think about an apple tree. That wouldn't make sense. We all understand basically what a chair is because we've seen them. But what I'm thinking about when I say chair might be very different than what you think about. So language is abstract, but meaning is shared. We would also say that meaning is socially constructed, right? If I say the word man, that's a symbol. It symbolizes something. What does it symbolize? I mean, I am a man, so I might be a referent for that. But what do you think of when I say things like manliness or manly? You might have connotations for that are very different than someone else. In fact, what we would say is that at a capital D discourse level, in other words, the big conversation that's happening about manliness is socially constructed. That the things that we associate with being manly are connected not with some inherent definition of your genetic makeup, but are tied to your actions, your attitudes, your culture, your background and makeup. It means then that our words might be abstract symbols, but they are abstract symbols with power because they are socially constructed and therefore you can construct them. You have a hand in what's happening. It's this layer of discourse, right? So we have lowercase d discourse, that's the communication that you have one-on-one. But then we also have levels of that where something you say to a roommate, maybe they talk about in a class one day, and then somebody else in that class creates a podcast or a YouTube channel and they share part of that idea, and it just keeps building and building until it is contributing to the capital D discourse, the dominant conversation about that issue. So we have a hand in defining these abstract symbols. So when I say words have power, I don't just mean be careful what you say. I mean, you have power to shape our understanding of what something means. That's pretty cool. But we're not just talking about what is said. We're also talking about what is unsaid, right? The lack of words, silence has power too. Imagine that you are asking a question at work, a clarifying question that you need in order to be able to do your job, and you don't get an answer. You're stuck. I mean, you can do your work then to the best of your ability, what you think is important, but if there's a deadline, you can't just wait. So this idea of words having power doesn't just stop with what is said, but goes on to what is unsaid. I don't want to simplify communication, though, just to our words. Our actions communicate as well. And just like our actions communicating, the lack of action also communicates. It's like this. When we're communicating with our words, people are reading other things too. Our nonverbal communication, we could call it. So, how we sit or stand, our tone that we use, gestures, facial expressions, the medium that we choose to communicate through, all of that would be nonverbal communication. And we tend to think that we're really good at reading nonverbals, at decoding action. It's why when you walk by someone on the sidewalk and you wave and they don't wave back, you start thinking they're upset, they don't like me, they don't remember me. You start attributing meaning to those actions. Now, when these are people we have relationships with, I would say that we can start to develop an understanding of their actions and their nonverbals, but research shows that when we're interacting with people that we don't know very well, we're actually really poor at understanding what their actions mean. And if those people come from a different culture or co-culture than we do, our interpretation is even less reliable. To the point where even something like smiling in one culture could indicate happiness and in another culture indicate severe discomfort. And something that might seem so easily interpreted can be misinterpreted. So, our actions are communicating something, but the lack of action is also communicating something as well. The only problem is we're really bad at interpreting it. I don't want to discourage you. I think as we work on it and developing perhaps an understanding that there are lots of ways we could interpret nonverbal communication, we get better at imagining all of the different ways that it could be interpreted and therefore are more understanding. If you tell someone this event that you have coming up is really important to you, and they don't show up, you might take that personally. You might think, well, they don't like me, or they don't care about me, or they wanted to hurt me. But if we stop and step back for a moment, we understand that there are other possible interpretations to that. Maybe something happened. Maybe they really wanted to attend that event, but something kept them from coming. Maybe they something else came up with a family member. They couldn't make it to your event. On an extreme case, maybe an accident came up and they were unable to make it. But what if we even gave them the benefit of the doubt when it wasn't a great read, right? They didn't show up because maybe they're struggling with their relationship with you and they need some time. Or maybe they struggled to communicate that love and acceptance that you communicate to them, and they're not sure how to communicate that. Once we start imagining more generous interpretations of actions, we can actually start working toward better communication. If I ask a clarifying question like, hey, why didn't you show up? I was really hoping you would be there. Their answer might help us develop a better understanding for who they are and help us build a better relationship even. So, these two ideas are huge. Your words have power. You have the ability to impact those around you and even impact capital D discourse, the big conversations that are happening around the world, around your country, around your people. But your actions communicate as well. And sometimes it's the disconnect between what you say and what you do that might create an impactful situation in your spaces that you inhabit. When we see somebody who's really consistent with their words and their actions, I mean, we attribute things like integrity and credibility, but what if you were to engage in such a way with the people around you through your words and actions that you developed such a sense of credibility and integrity in their minds that you were trusted, you were given power, authority, influence to create the change that you want to see in the world around you? I don't believe that there are certain words or phrases that will just get you what you want. I don't think that there are scripts that will get us there, but I think that there are principles, there are ways of behaving that can help us move toward influence and change. And if that's something that you're interested in an organization or a relationship or a community, lean into it. Recognize the areas that you can grow, whether that's how you communicate with your words or your actions, your verbals and your nonverbals. If your words have power and your actions communicate, you have a responsibility to work on those and understand how you come across and to listen and see and notice the people who are around you.